passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver, Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show, where we challenge everything and everyone. Today, we're going to be challenging some thoughts that you may have around what can somebody in their teens and 20s do to change the world? Because we got somebody here who's changing the world, and for some of you, he's been changing the world before you were still, you were still hanging out with tricycles and, those little wheels that you need so you don't fall off your bicycle. But we're going to get to our guest in a minute. First of all, remember, we are a live call-in show now. So you can call us at 202-570-7057. Again, that's 202-570-7057. By calling in, you can be part of the conversation. You don't make a difference in the world by sitting down, shutting up, and being a lump. You just basically end up having a world shaped for you that then you get to grouse and complain about, not be happy with, but you feel like you have no control. You want some control? Stand up, speak out, make a change, take some action. Taking action today, tonight, for the next hour, maybe picking up this phone, expressing an idea or a thought, or talking to our guest and getting some information from him or from me. If you would rather do it via Facebook, you can come to facebook.com/MyDrKevin, MYDRKEVIN. Make sure you like the page. I'm a likable guy. And you will see at the very top tonight's guest, his contact information, and you can write comments there. And I will be monitoring that all the time, as well as monitoring the Twitter, which is either at Web of Light, WOBOFLIGHT, and at My Dr. Kevin, MYDRKEVIN. If you tweet something and put that in, we will see that as well, and we can also share your thoughts and ideas via Twitter. So, as we always do, we're going to start tonight with what we call my hot under the collar, or what I call my hot topic, which, as you know, may mean something that gets me hot under the collar or something that kind of makes me feel warm and fuzzy and something that I want to share. So, part of what I want to do today to share, and then I'm going to bring in a young man that may have a very different perspective, who I'll introduce you to in a minute, is I want to share the fact that good, bad, or indifferent, people are getting more socially and politically active. Maybe we'd like to say it's for all the wrong reasons. Maybe we'd like to say, hey, I could have lived very happily not having my blood pressure go up every time I read what he has tweeted. He who shall not be named has tweeted what ludicrous thing he said, or what's happening that's going to impact my world in such a way I just cannot keep my mouth shut. Whatever the reason may be, or maybe it's, I think he's right on, and I think you liberals have all been just taking it too easy, and it's time you got some butt whooping done, and we're whooping your butt now because our man's there. Whatever it may be. But at least people are more engaged than I have seen them in a long time. There's more petitions, there's more protests, there's more talk, there's more people taking action, deciding what action they can take. There's more people showing up at town halls, there's more people showing up at voting booths, and however you look at this, this is a warm and fuzzy for me. At least a larger part of America, not enough of America. We still have a staggeringly high percentage of apathetics who just kind of feel like, they're trying to do their imitation of a tumbleweed. Whichever the way the wind blows, they just roll with it because they're just perfectly happy to take their pharmaceutical medication, watch their TV, have their shot of scotch or drink their beer and just say, well, I don't make a difference anyways. But we're getting people hyped. We're getting people active. We're getting people speaking out. And maybe before everything is said and done, we will actually see some real positive change because of all of this. Now I'm going to introduce today's guest. And I'm going to bring him on, and I'll put him right on the hot seat and see what he thinks about this. We have Swarochish Goswami. Now, I'm going to let him correct me as many times as he needs to, because I'm sure I massacred his name. Swarochish is a 19-year-old sophomore from Toronto, Canada, studying at the University of Toronto. He's an award-winning serial tech entrepreneur and innovator. He is a UN Youth Ambassador, Huffington Post contributor, early-stage tech investor, LinkedIn campus editor, social media personality, and TEDx speaker. There's a ton of other things about him. As we go through the segments tonight, I'll read some other things, but I'd rather hear from him personally. If you would like to connect with him, you can connect with him at linkedin.com/manu-Goswami, and then there's a number, but the link is on the Facebook page. And I am going to ask Swarochish to go on to facebook.com/mydrkevin, and in the comment section to put what might be some easier contact information for people who want to get in touch with him. Will you do that for me?
Definitely will do.
Okay. I'm going to have you speak up nice and loud. You sound a little soft to me.
Awesome.
So, how badly did I kill your name?
Not too bad. It was okay. It's Swarochish, but honestly, I go by Swish, which is an easy nickname, like the basketball shot. So nice and easy.
See, I come from a different part of the neighborhood. Swish has a different meaning. But I can pronounce Swish. Trust me.
Yeah.
So Swish. So on our first break, make sure you hop on my Facebook page. So if people are listening to us right now, I mean, they can click in through your LinkedIn, but I'm sure there's a website that I somehow just didn't get my hands on that people could put out there. So you can just put that in as we're on the show. So Swish, what do you think? Overall, is this a good thing to see the American public engaged, or are you Canadians just having a really good laugh at us?
No, we have our own problems of our own, honestly. But no, I think engagement is so important. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, a conservative or a liberal. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm just happy that people are voicing their opinion. They're putting it out there. And, you know, most of us are actually having healthy debates. Some of us are having unhealthy debates. That's a whole different matter. But for the most part, if you take a look at it right now, social media, what it's done to be able to make people transparent and, more importantly, to let constituents speak up to their representatives, it's fantastic and it's incredible. And it's something that I think is the purpose of social media and political discourse.
Well, one of the concerns I do have about the social media stuff, and I'm a big social media person. I mean, I'm out there every day posting in a dozen different places on a dozen different channels of social media. But I do think that on one hand, social media can be exposing and sharing and having things show up that help with transparency. But sometimes I think it really muddies the water as well. And sometimes I think it actually supports all of the faux news that's going on. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I definitely think, the last election was so indicative of the impact of fake news. However, I think that the people who fell trapped to fake news pointed another problem altogether, which is sometimes the lack of education that some people have when interpreting political discourse, right? So, correcting for when people lie on the stage, correcting when people post articles that are not true. This isn't something that I would actually put as much blame on media organizations as much on the politicians that use these fake media outlets or these fake media news to actually propagate their own campaign. So I definitely think there's a bigger problem out there, which is the lack of political discourse being put into the educational curriculum so we can actually understand what the hell a conservative is and what a liberal truly is, and more importantly, where that divide happens on a number of issues. But at the end of the day, I think that's something that can happen generationally. I don't think it's something we can fix tomorrow or next month.
So one of the things that I want to do is, so So my first question: do you look at Brexit as a legitimate source? As somebody who's very much into social media and stuff like that, is there any legitimacy there, or should it just be dismissed?
I think it probably should be dismissed. I think there is some legitimacy at the point where some of their views that they've held are grounded within discourse that actually happened. But for the most part, if you take a look at it, and a lot of critics, a lot of scholars have pointed this out in the past, is a lot of malarkey there. and it's something that definitely should be dismissed largely, I think.
Okay. So, it's like the cried wolf thing. When somebody cries wolf so often, Prince hype, Prince stuff like this, then you just get to the point where you just have to dismiss everything. Because even if they were telling the truth, it would only be kind of sort of like by accident.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think one thing that everyone needs to know is everyone has their own agenda, right? Media organizations have an agenda, politicians have an agenda, donors have an agenda, businesses have an agenda. At the end of the day, I think it needs to be, something ingrained in people's minds that whenever someone says something to you, try to understand the context from where they're coming from what their agenda is, from what their true interests actually are. And that's the second layer that I wish was brought up more by media organizations. I wish it was brought up more when trying to take a look at people's statements, and instead of making them the headline, actually going deep into them.
And that's the sound of our first break, and we'll be right back with Swish.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience in all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Mother, Mother Ocean.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Buffett. West Indian manatees are one of the most unique animals on Earth, and we're still finding out so many new things about them. But manatees are endangered, and many of them are killed or injured each year because of watercraft collisions or other human activities. You can help save these gentle marine mammals. For free tips on what you can do, call Save the Manatee Club at 1-800-432-JOIN. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one Om at a time. We have tonight's guest is Swarochish Goswami. He is a 19-year-old mover and shaker out of Toronto, Canada. He is a TEDx speaker. He is a tech innovator. He has done stuff with angel investing. You can find out more about him at facebook.com/mydrkevin. Where at mydrkevin he has told me he has put his website, but I don't see it in the comment section, and I just updated, so I'm not sure. He might have put it on the Dr. Kevin Show instead of My Dr. Kevin. So we're going to check there. We're going to find out where he stuck better contact information. But there we go. But we're going to get this information for you. But we do have his LinkedIn. He also is, besides featured on the Huffington Post, he was winning the Startup Canada Young Entrepreneur. There it is. Now that comment has showed. Good job. Canada's Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, Strategy Magazine Social Innovator of the Year Award, the United Nations Outstanding Youth Leadership Award. Where were you outstanding when that happened? Anywhere interesting?
New York.
New York. Okay. Well, New York's an interesting place, Swish. So anyways, so come there. He has his website posted. We have his LinkedIn posted. We have his full bio, but we're going to get back to the man himself. And don't forget, this is now a live call-in show. So if you want to talk to myself, or you want to talk to Swish, or you just want to share a comment or a thought on things that we are discussing, there it is. Thank you so much. We'll like it right now. You can call 202-570-7057. He said in his best radio voice. Swish.
Yep.
We are going to move on to our first "You're now on the hot seat" question.
Okay.
Where do you? So you have your answers, right? You did your homework.
Oh yeah.
Oh good.
I'm all ready.
Oh, you're ready. Good. So tell me, Swish, where do you want to take my listeners outside the box? Where do you want to stretch their comfort zones?
Honestly, I want to talk about something that is entirely outside their comfort zones. For a lot of the people listening to this right now, the single fear of putting themselves out there. In the previous segment, I remember us talking about how a lot of people are engaged, how a lot of people are commenting on political discourse or even trying to propagate it themselves. But when it comes to people's passions, I feel like people are more complacent there, putting themselves out there. And one thing that, I've been trying to take a look at for the last year and a half is understanding that no job in this world is truly secure. And that life is a game of odds. You can definitely improve your chances to succeed. But the way to be able to do that is through building a personal brand. It's by going and trying to take your values, your beliefs, your passions, and putting it all together on digital media and in person and trying to put yourself out there. And I think the benefits range from book deals to branded content deals to speaking engagements to even jobs if you do it on various platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, or if you put yourself out there by going to networking events even. That's what I really, really think people should start doing, because the benefits are endless, and more importantly, the job security, if that's something you care about, is also something you're able to get when you're able to fall back on a personal brand if you ever do lose your job.
Okay, so, well, first of all, and I'm not saying I disagree with anything you say. The first thing that I want to look at is a lot of people out there feel like they don't have they don't have permission to follow their passion.
Yep.
And I'm just throwing that out because when you were talking, I could hear people thinking. I'm a psychic, right? I could hear people thinking, yeah, but who am I? What have I got to brand? And there's been an overall consistent destruction of the average American Canadian's self-worth, self-esteem for 50 years through religions, governments, and public media to basically say you're a no one.
Yep. So, there's two approaches here, right, Dr. Kevin? I can go the one approach, which is entirely motivational, and say, no, you're the man. You can do it. You can do it, right? But I'm going to go the latter. I'm going to tell you, even if you're a person that has nothing to contribute, which I find extremely unrealistic and likely going to be like 1% of people out there, even less, I think the number one thing you can do if you're in an industry, regardless of what age you're at, is to try to promote other people's voices then and start building your personal brand around helping other personal brands grow, which I think is actually the best way to do it. So a lot of times, young people come up to me and they ask me, how did I build my LinkedIn following, for example? the number one way I did that is simply by going up to people that were influential. And the way I was able to connect with them is telling them, hey, look, I love your story and I want to interview you and I want to write an article on LinkedIn for you, or I want to interview you on GarageBand and export that to SoundCloud and make a podcast around what your story is. So if you feel like you have nothing to contribute, or if you feel like you aren't ready yet to put yourself out there in terms of your views, think about looking around you and 5 people who you look up to and connect with them by giving them value off the front.
But, okay, so that, and I'm a big promoter, and I don't know if you're aware that I've been doing work for 18 years with ADD and ADHD. Mm-hmm. And I bring that up because that's fabulous for the teen and the 20 and even the early 30-something who was born with, instead of a rattle, with a mouse in their hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Who learned the alphabet on the keyboard and has no fear. But what do you say to the automaker worker in Michigan who may still have a job barely, supporting his family, that has a high school diploma and is afraid of touching the on button on a computer because he knows he'll break it?
Yep.
I'd say two things.
I'd say two things. I'd say, sir or ma'am, I'd say, A, branding yourself does not have to be done digitally. The way to be able to brand yourself can also be done by putting editorials in the newspaper or printing out posters that you're going to be hosting a small little session where you're going to give the young kids in the neighborhood some experiential advice on what they want to do in life. And more importantly, even if you want to go digitally, a lot of people who are older, who weren't born in this digital generation, if you will, they have experience. They have the one thing that a lot of young people don't have. And if they speak to that experience and if they put themselves out there as a person who can be a reference to so many young kids that need someone who's 40, 50 years old to tell them what they did wrong and what they did well and guide them, that is something that can be hugely beneficial. And again, I'm going to go back to my thing at the very start too. I don't think everyone needs to build a personal brand, right? So if you're perfectly content with your life and you're having an incredible 9-to-5 job, for example, you're going back home, you have great work-life balance, it's fine. But I'm talking to the people right now who are complaining, the people who want more from life but aren't getting it. And instead of going after and doing something with the tools that we have currently in our day and age, are simply not doing anything at all. That's the people I really want to talk to.
And that's a good delineator. When you start with those people who are out there that says, I feel like I could be doing more in the world, I'm not happy with where I am in my life, I have something I want to do, those are the people that should be taking notes as you speak. The next thing is, Swish, that to understand that for some people, being content and knowing the mortgage is paid is as joyful as their life is going to get for them, and they're okay with that. And so as you are putting this message out, and I don't disagree with the message in the fact, look at me, my Dr. Kevin, MYDRKEVIN. People pick on me when I insist on being introduced as Dr. Kevin. I'm like, all my branding is my Dr. Kevin. You put in that in any social media I'm in, and you're going to find me. So I get what you're saying, and I've helped do some social media branding for some companies I've worked with. I'm not just a woo-woo and another pretty face. But sometimes I think that the challenge I would like to see of your generation is you have talents and skill sets that came because of when you were born and you were groomed into them. But there is at least 2 to 3 generations still walking on the planet that have a story to tell, have wisdom to share, have something to offer the world, and you go find them and you help them offer the world. You go
Definitely.
and you go find somebody you admire that isn't a high profile, successful, it's going to add 5,000 names to your LinkedIn when you add him, and I get social capital. I completely get social capital. But for the 17-year-old or the 19-year-old or the 15-year-old or even the 20-something who goes, I got all these talents and skill sets, but I haven't discovered me yet.
Yep.
That is the perfect one that I want to kick them in the butt and say, go talk to your grandparents. Go to a nursing home. Go to a senior citizen center. Find somebody there to get on social media. Find somebody there with wisdom, and you will discover yourself along the way. What do you think of that, Swish?
I love that. And you know what? One thing that I've done in the past is, imagine going also to senior citizen home, hearing the incredible stories some of those people there have. But more importantly, sometimes you'll find one or two people there that when you look in their eyes, you see regret. You see regret that they didn't do something that could honestly affect your decision-making right now. And I think the worst thing in life, honestly, is truly the feeling of regret, that feeling that you could have done something differently before. And for a lot of us right now, you're right. We've been blessed with talents and skill sets because of the generation we were born in. But I feel like a lot of us right now are putting that at a backseat while trying to basically play to society's narrative of who we should be as opposed to who we were born to be. And that's something that I speak so passionately about. Because another way that I try to tell young kids to find their passion, and keep in mind I'm 19 here, so I'm not an expert on this whatsoever, but at the same time, the one thing I do tell people my age is go and either talk to people who are much older, like you said, Dr. Kevin, or secondly, go and do something you really hate. Because if you go and do something you hate, even for 2 hours, your mind will automatically drift off to things that it would rather do. And chances are, 99% of the time, in my opinion, and from the people I've been mentoring, that's definitely been true. The thing that your mind is drifting off to while you're being forced to do something you hate is actually your passion.
And that's brilliant. I love that. I know at any minute now the music, and there it is. And we'll be right back with Swarochish Goswami.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Yelito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
This is why you work so hard to pay the mortgage. Because home is more than four walls and a roof. It's that porch swing on a summer evening. It's everybody over for Sunday dinner. And your family sleeping in their own beds at night. Making Home Affordable is a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov.
Good night, Mama.
This is why. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes Radio. Here on the Dr. Kevin Show, we like to challenge everyone and everything. We are challenging Swarochish Goswami. Swish is, I love this one. He was one of the world's most accomplished teenagers by future sharks. Okay. Along with a ton of other stuff, which you can go to facebook.com/mydrkevin, MYDRKEVN. Make sure you like the page when you're there. I'm a likable guy. Take my word for it. I wouldn't lie to you. I'm not a politician. Or you can call in if you want to be part of the conversation at 202-570-7057. So I have to ask, Swish, before we go into the next part of our conversation, what are the future sharks?
So the Future Sharks is basically a great publication started by a friend of mine, Alejandro, and it's made up now of a couple of great advisors that came together and decided to cover a couple of entrepreneurs ranging from young people who are like 15, 14-year-old hustlers to people who are, 19 like me to even people who are 25.
Okay. So I'm gonna tell you my first thing when I saw that, which is I would rather have them be future dolphins than future sharks. Why do we want to encourage people to be associated with something that is a man-eating, violent killer animal? It supports the idea that it supports the idea that you have to have. It supports the idea you have to be a heartless killer to be successful. Because that's how most people would describe a shark. I'm not saying that's true, but that's how most people would see it.
Definitely. No, definitely. I mean, honestly, I think the name they were trying to go for was something, interesting and cool, but, it definitely does have a weird connotation to it. I agree. And
I'm hoping that your generation, because I'm a couple of years older than you, but I'm hoping that your generation, because you tend to in some ways be more open-minded, more accepting, more fluid, and are less impressed by characters like the guy that was in the movie Wall Street as desirable.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but here's the thing. Honestly, I don't think that's the fault of my generation. No, I think that's the fault of the movie. Like the movie itself glorified Jordan Belfort, right? People came up being like, that guy's life was really cool, instead of like that guy really screwed over a bunch of people.
Yep. And I look at your generation as the solution for the people who thought that was cool. I look at your generation as having the hope to overthrow that and say, who's really cool is the Dalai Lama is really cool. He goes around the world and he influences world leaders and he preaches peace, not violence and screwing people over. I think that's cool. I mean, that's what I'd like to see. So anyways, this segment's called Behind the Curtain. Did you get a chance to listen to any of my shows? You can say no, it's okay.
I have. Yeah, I know I
did.
have. Yeah.
So you do know what the quiz is that's coming, right?
I do.
You do. So you know what the answer is, right? Okay.
I hope. We'll see.
Okay. So what line did this movie come from? Ignore the man behind the curtain. Wizard of Oz, yes. And yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And for all my new listeners, the reason that I always ask the guest on this is the great and powerful Oz was just a shyster from Kansas that just had a good PR agent. So I want Swish to expose us to a truth that he thinks has been falsified, made into something that's not, that just literally had a good PR agent. What would that truth be?
And this truth is going to be that millennials are apathetic. I think that it's being misrepresented, I think millennials are certainly apathetic when it comes to voting, when it comes to coming out to the ballot box. But I don't think that a statement like that is true in all cases. I think when you take a look at digital engagement, which I believe is now how democratic participation has evolved, I think millennials are leading there. If you take a look at Facebook, the most active users fall within the demographic of 18 to 25. If you take a look at Twitter, the most active demographic falls between 22 to 27. In my region, there was a 19-year-old kid who got elected. And more importantly, I think something that we talked about earlier, petitions and ways that are beyond simply the ballot box for participation in the democratic system, the group and the demographic that is leading in the number of petitions issued fall between the ranges of 22 to 25. And so, honestly, when people say millennials are apathetic because it's a great PR stunt, because it's a great thing for politicians to say this is the reason why this blank got elected, because people didn't show up to the ballot box, I told them that, yeah, millennials sure are apathetic when it comes to the ballot box, but when it comes to actually participating in this democratic system, I think it's an overarching statement and it's a generalization to say that they're apathetic.
Well, I think more millennials showed up for this last election than has in several elections prior. But it's so funny. I would never call the millennials apathetic overall. I think that they are less apathetic than the generation that went before them. I think they're more engaged. Yeah. I just think they were more engaged in different ways.
Yes, correct.
I'd like to see them have a little bit more face-to-face personal interaction and learn a few social skills like how to say hello without having to text it. But that's another thing.
Yeah.
I'm a good old-fashioned touchy-feely. No matter how many times I hug that text, it just doesn't feel the same. But I do think that there was a great statement, and believe it or not, I'll tell you, I saw it, and it was on a TV sitcom that was on before you were born. I think the year was probably 1962 or 63.
Right.
It was a Lucille Ball show. Mm-hmm. And I always remember this episode. I saw it on reruns, I'm pretty sure. But she was talking about how I fear for the future of the world when I look at this generation and they're not engaged and they're not participating and they're not taking action and they have become irresponsible and lazy and or whatever the thing was. And it was all this thing about how bad this generation was and how fearful the speaker was about what was going to happen to the world, putting the world in the hands of this generation. Mm-hmm. And she was reading that at a commencement speech. The original writer of the piece was Plato.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know, who lived in 350 BC. So every generation thinks the next generation isn't going to make it. Since 350 BC, True. This is nothing new.
Yep.
Yep. So I don't think the millennials, but I think that the press wants the millennials to be apathetic because they're not good robots. They have broken out of the robot model. They don't just say yes. They never gave up being to and saying why.
I agree. Yep, I agree entirely. Yep, and here's the thing too. I mean, it's definitely a selling tactic, but I honestly think when you have people come up and say millennials are lazy and things like that, I mean, just think about it. Beyond the fact that it's a generalization and you can't classify, characteristics to demographic at large in any context, in my opinion, I just find it hilarious that at the same time while people say millennials are lazy, hell, the people they're employing in their businesses, in their political parties, tend to be millennials. So you're literally disenfranchising people who are coming to work for you. You're disenfranchising people entering the workforce who are going to be paying your pensions and paying into your securities fund. It's ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. And you guys have some stuff to bitch about. We're not giving you a great world. We're giving you a far less, we're giving you a world that has more problems than the world we inherited.
Right. But at the same time, you're still...
Go ahead.
And I would say, at the same time, though, I mean, I definitely think you're still giving us a world, though, that has more tools to be able to influence institutions, to be able to change and disrupt areas than ever before, right?
Yeah, we're giving you more tools and skill sets to fix the problems, but we're giving you more problems to fix.
True,
So,
I agree with that.
Does it balance out? Yeah, who's to say whether it balances out or not? In about 1 minute, we are going to be going to break again. I do want to just put that out in the air so we don't get too hot and heavy into a conversation. We'll get cut off. I'm going to have you think about this and answer it when you get back from break. If there was one thing you could communicate that you think that millennials are missing that could help them step up to the plate and right this boat called humanity, which is kind of floundering, and the sea of the universe, what would you, with a magic wand, how would you swish that wand? Swish.
Yeah, great.
Couldn't help it. And you'll answer that when we get back.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit RAIN.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show, where we challenge everything and everyone. Remember, this is a call-in show. You may call in at 202-570-7057, or you may come to facebook.com/MyDrKevin, MYDRKEVIN, and you may post a comment, you may Twitter it, you may call it in, you may be part of the conversation. We are here today with Swarochish Goswami. He is a very impressive young man. UN Youth Ambassador, Huffington Post contributor, early stage tech investor, Lincoln campus editor, and social media personality and TEDx speaker. I have asked him before we went on break, what would be the one message he would give to millennials that he thinks would help them step up as a generation, and what would it be? Swish, you're on.
All right. So, in the last segment, we talked about it, right? All we really hear as millennials is how much we suck. We have it so easy. We're lazy. We never put our phone down. We're unaware. We're uneducated. Okay, we get it, right? I think for the most part, I'd like to believe that that's really wrong. It's a generalization. But at the same time, I think the one thing that we as millennials have really lost touch with is nature. So hear me out. I don't want to make this a sob story where we should all go peace out to cities and live in the trees. So, I actually don't think that would be the worst idea. But I actually think that when you think about it, if you're a millennial listening to this right now, when was the last time that you dropped everything and went somewhere? And I mean really went somewhere, like got in the car and drove until your cell phone lost service. When was the last time you got lost, at least 7 wrong turns lost? Or when was the last time you had a breath of fresh air so fresh it actually tasted good, right? So I'm not saying get rid of your cell phone or get rid of your carrier pigeon, but really exploring and going out in the world and seeing how beautiful this planet is can actually do something for your soul that I think nothing else can do. So if you haven't, stood in the snow or grass or sand this week, I would say you need to. Because I really do think that millennials are taking the world by storm, but are forgetting to actually enjoy the world and the storm itself. So if you're looking at pictures on your Instagram and seeing how beautiful this world is, just let me tell you one thing. It looks even better in real life.
Well, and I think that that's very powerful, and I couldn't agree more. My biggest concern is millennials have lost some of the connection to all that connects us. And that's human connection in person, that's nature, that's being out there, and, really just sitting, being, allowing, quieting the mind and see what comes up. It's almost as if by being wired for sound, they've lost connection with soul.
I love that. Yep. Agreed.
So, in this, our last segment, this is the segment that my guests either love the most or hate the most.
Yeah.
What a load of crap would Dr. Kevin, what load of crap would you like to share with the world today? You are on. Go.
Great. So the load of crap I want to talk about kind of goes and I think encompasses everything we've talked about so far, which is that weird feeling I feel that a lot of people who are listening to the show and a lot of people who aren't have, which is the fact that so many people fear what others think of them and are scared to go after their dream or to go after what they want to do because they think that if they do it, they'll be behind the 8 ball compared to their friends. I think it's honestly holding people back. I think it's not helping them. I think it's killing their minds. It's putting more stress on them than needs to happen. And look, I think a lot of people who go after their passion, who go after their dream, are scared of failing, are scared of the fact that if they go after it, they'll end up in a worse situation than they started off with. But to them, one thing that I'd like to say here is this. Failure is inevitable. Regardless of whatever you do, you will run into professional and personal obstacles. And I think people need to spend more time concentrating on how to respond to those failures than trying to avoid it as much. And I think when you put more of your attention, more of your energy towards doing things you actually love, there's nothing that can honestly hold you back.
One of the things that I teach and do with my clients and all of the other different ways that I give shit to the world is to ask people to really remember the only thing that they can never fail at is being them. And why we fail so much, well, we perceive we fail so much, is so often we feel like being us is not acceptable. Being us is not what people really want. That everybody wants us to be whatever they want out of a son or a lover or a parent or a child or a friend or a boss or an employee. We have all of these things and we lose touch with being us because you can't fail at being you. And then the only failure beyond that is giving up. That's a failure.
Yeah.
Nothing else is a failure. Everything else is just part of the journey.
Yep.
So I think that that's powerful. So we've got 5 or 6 minutes left. You shared that. So share a little bit about what you're doing now, what you're doing now. What are you studying at the University of Toronto? Or are you teaching there?
Okay. Oh, God, no. I'm studying peace, conflict, justice studies and ethics, society, and law.
Okay, and what's your ultimate goal? How do you want to most impact the world?
Honestly, just by whatever I do, I want to be able to just help people. That's the overarching thing. So definitely the three areas that I've picked out for myself to try as much as possible to impact the world through are entertainment, business, and politics. I think I've been able to do one so far, which is business, but I still have a long ways to go even in that. And later on in life, I definitely want to consider branching into entertainment or politics. My dream in life, honestly, is to have my own talk show, similar to yours, honestly, Dr. Kevin, that I can do political commentary on, that I can humor people, I can inspire people. And beyond that, even potentially running for the top office here in Canada.
Why? Is it running away? Is that why you're running for it? Oh, sorry.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, and here's one of the things that we've talked about on the show before. And I don't know whether you're somebody who, before you came, because there are people that we have in common. I've done several young, successful entrepreneurs because I want them to inspire, motivate, and change how the world sees the millennials. Mm-hmm. So I've had probably 8 or 9 that and some of them I know you know, or at least you know through social media.
Definitely.
But entertainment media has to accept, whether it wants to or not, that it has a responsibility because it does shape, mold, and affect the world. Mm-hmm. And I see it being used very irresponsible. I've actually, I have a TV show as well. And I've started a second TV show this week at the station's behest. And I've got a third show coming online in the next 3 months. And the third show is what I want to talk to you about, because it's called Neutral News. I'm already doing this on the radio show once a month. Neutral News, where we just say, these are the facts, these are just the facts. All the rest of it is hype. All the rest of it is agenda. Mm-hmm. But in this day and age, you can have a talk show now. I mean, it may be a blog talk show. It may be like I've been on air for over 10 years. I started as a podcast. I went into internet radio. I was on CBS radio. I was live in Seattle, Detroit, and Boston. I left that because there was controlling over my content. They tried to control my content. I told them to kiss certain body parts of mine that I was willing to expose.
Yeah.
There is a journey there that never stopped me from my practice as a spiritual catalyst, never stopped me from writing my books, never stopped me from teaching, never stopped me from doing the other things. It didn't always get the time that it needed, but with your background and stuff like that, there's no reason that can't be present today. And maybe you can come play at some point if you ever get out of Toronto and come down to the balmy southern New England area of the world, that you can play on some of my shows.
I would love that. I would honestly love that. And I think you spoke something really, really powerful there, which is, the ability for us all to have a voice right now has become democratized, right? I mean, social media has given us all a voice. It's given us a platform to speak up at. But I think, again, going back to my favorite quote from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And I agree with you. A lot of organizations, a lot of platforms, a lot of people on these platforms don't realize that when they spit out words, people tend to get influenced by them, and that they have a prerogative to speak truth, to hear truth, and to pass that on.
And we, as the public, have a responsibility to hold accountable the people who are not saying the truth.
Absolutely.
We cannot keep on letting them...
But here's the thing, Dr. Kevin. Here's the thing. So many people, however, don't know what the truth actually is, right? Like, what is the singular truth behind an issue? Because in at least the United States of America, I know that there tends to be 2 versions of that truth for every issue, right? And it's definitely, I think, in those moments where the country needs to come together and realize that there's certain boundaries that we're not willing to step over. and realize that there are people who have an agenda to do very much just that. And then that's where I think we have a responsibility to make sure that these are the people who are not amplified, whether it be in politics or media.
Well, and it's very hard, and that's why I came up with the concept and have started, like I said, once a month I do neutral news on the radio, and that's it's my first Thursday of the month. Matt Condrington and I do the neutral news, and I'm going to bring it to a TV show, which at this point I only have time to do it once a month. I don't really have that much time, but I'll make it work.
I can imagine, yeah.
But I think it's so important that at least people need to know what is the actual single truth that you can say, well, that is true. 5 people were killed. Mm-hmm. We did a truth story on Yemen.
Yeah.
People were killed. There is no black, white, right, wrong. People were killed. Their people were killed. Our people were killed. We know that's a truth. So, but sometimes you have to do that. Thank you so much for coming.
Pat, thank you for
join us again.
I really appreciate it. Absolutely.